We are here with one of the most notable wrestlers in history, somebody who changed the game everywhere she went, the one and only Madusa. Madusa, welcome to Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations. So honored that you're joining me today.
Hey there. Hi. Thanks for having me. Very excited. I love your background drop there, kind of the lights and the ring. Nice.
Very good. So let's start with what's going on right behind you there. So you've written a book, The Woman Who Would Be King, the Madusa Story with the great Greg Oliver. What was it like for you to get this story out there? And what was it like for you to write a book?
Well, my whole life has been a book, right? So, I mean, how do you get 40 years of entertainment in one book? You just don't. So, I'm sure I could pick and choose each chapter and write a book about it. So, you can bet there'll probably be other books, just kind of like a Jericho thing, right? You pick a chapter, you write about it. So, Um, it's been when I first got into the entertainment business, I said, not only am I going to go in here wanting to change the trajectory of things, but I wanted to go in and make a big splash. And when I first got in, I knew I had to make it a business, and which all of them back then thought I was crazy. And I trademarked my name 40 years ago, Madusa, and I did it right. I did it right. And well, one thing right anyway. So I just said that, you know what? Someday I'm going to write a book. Someday I'd love to have a movie, or whatever. And here we are. It's finally coming to fruition. Now, when I wrote this book, I, probably about 3 or 4 times have exercised the idea to actually publish or to write I was writing, making notes,
Mhm.
but actually to publish it. So it was the perfect timing right now. I mean, what else do you do during a pandemic than write a book?
Right. What are you most excited for fans to learn about your journey?
I feel that this book it's a biography. Keep that in mind. It's a biography. It's my story, my adventures, my adversities, and the experiences I had to endure to become and who I am today, and still learning. So this book is very inspiring and motivating, is what I'm getting a lot of feedback on. It gives people hope. It really opens their mind to what women went through in an era that was uh, so man driven, let's say,
Mhm.
and the choices that I took to overcome that and to let's say head on the people that I needed to challenge. I respectfully found different ways, and when they told me no constantly, and I kept my integrity intact. So to me, that's very important. Where a lot of people sell their soul.
Very good. As you look around the women's wrestling scene today, how do you kind of assess it?
Women's wrestling today is exactly my style. I was
Yeah.
so ahead of my time. Everyone tells me that. I know that. But someone had to pave the way. And there's women that paved the way before me. And there's always going to be women paving the way. So, and those are the noisemakers. Those are the women that are loud. And I was very loud, because I was bound and determined to be heard and to make that difference, right? And to be respected. So the women today is just that huge community of women that has evolved from all the women from the beginning up until today. And today's women is going to continue to evolve for the women for the future. So when I see women headlining WrestleMania, or when I hear of the first woman signing her $1 million contract after all of these years, just a year or so ago, right? A couple years ago, I thought, what took you? I mean, what the heck?
Yeah.
What the heck? What took so long, right? So that makes me feel good. At least one or two or whatever, a couple have them, but they're still nearly not enough because men been making $1 million contracts all the way back in the 90s and 80s and whatnot. So
And, it seems to me, so many people were making sacrifices and speaking up to advocate for women's wrestling is
Yes.
more than just a side attraction for a long time. And
Yes.
obviously, you were one of them who's definitely laid the groundwork for what we have now, which is, like you said, women are the main event of WrestleMania. Women are, there's entire pay per views based around women's matches headlining, or even women's matches taking up the whole card. So it's definitely something to for you to be obviously very proud of, and it's, of course, you are. So congratulations on all of that, because you're somebody who I've respected for many years of just watching you for literally all the way back to the AWA. So
Thank
um,
you. Thank you. You know, it's not easy. When you're 60 years old like I am, and even in film, it's very difficult for women to stay afloat, to still, to be taken seriously, to be heard. But we're getting louder and things are changing. That, again, the old cliche that age is a number, it is, but it's also how you project yourself, and you can't go out demanding and being, just, you know, hard to deal with, basically. But back in the day, when I did have, when I was louder, when I was stronger, when I was all of that, we were labeled hard to handle, or don't work with them because you'll never get, stuff like that. Now it's a movement, so, and it's a positive movement. You just got to do it gracefully and eloquently speak, and it will get done. It's Let me tell you, it's exhausting. It's exhausting being a paver and not
yeah,
being able to have that $1 million contract. However, there's other ways and, other means that a smart person will find, and how and what to do. So you write a book.
nice. So Paul Heyman wrote the forward for your
Yes.
book. Did you
Yes.
first cross paths with him in the AWA? And what is it like meeting Paul Heyman, of all people, for the first time?
Well, if when you read the book, there's a great story, and it's a funny thing because now it's hashtag it's in my book, because the introduction and everything and how we met is in the book, and I
Okay,
ain't gonna give
good.
it away because you said you haven't read it yet.
I will.
So yeah, so I mean, it's pretty amazing and powerful, because we're still friends to this day. We're like best friends, and one of our best friends, and you mean something to somebody when you get a call and you are asked to go to his daughter's bat mitzvah.
Okay, very good.
Hmm.
I thought you were so great. I love the Dangerous Alliance days too.
Oh, that's so
A
underrated.
director of covert operations.
So good. I know. I can see it now. If I were to ever have a retirement match, and if it was against Rhea Ripley,
Ooh,
she can bring the Judgment Day, and I am going to go. And what a nice little twist it would be. And Paul can be my manager, right? Like she has hers, and we're going to bring a new DA.
nice. Very,
No,
very
I don't
good.
know. That's all talk. I'm just whatever.
It'll be a headline somewhere, and we'll figure that out.
Hey, yeah.
You could never avoid that. But so
Mm-mm.
Japan was such a notable part of your career. You were, you said before about being ahead of your time,
Mm.
and being an American wrestling for All Japan Women, establishing yourself, learning and growing. What is it about Japan and wrestling in Japan that made them sort of ahead of the curve, it seems like, on women wrestling culturally, but also it kind of helped you become who you are?
Well, I mean, Japan definitely helped me hone my craft and molded me, half of who I am, because I knew that when I signed well, not signed, it was a handshake and a 3-year deal with Japan, that I knew it was serious. And I believe that the women in Japan got so much respect, and women feared wrestling over in Japan because of how serious it was. It's because they started the women young, like started camping them like when they were 14, 16 years old. They would have these tryouts, and it was insane. I mean, hundreds and thousands of girls would line up for this tryout to be a Japanese woman's wrestler. That's how serious it was. And when I did my diligence and I said, before wrestling, before I'm getting into this, and I found women's wrestling, and I'm like, that's where I want to go. That's what I'm going to do. And that's where I'm going to make my statement and bring it back to the States. And sure enough, when I set my mind to something,
Yeah.
I do it.
And you brought some of your matches, like you said, from Japan here to the US, probably most notably your rivalry with the Great Bull Nakano.
Bull Nakano, absolutely.
And I saw
Hmm.
recently on Elimination Chamber, you had Beth Phoenix using her look as a tribute to Bull. How proud are you of what you two accomplished with your matches, and what were those matches like to participate in?
Well, it was wonderful working with Nakano because she was like just doing a dance with her, and we didn't even really speak in the ring. So that was just a perfect dance. And it's a very rare to find that perfect partner in wrestling because of the psychology is important, the timing's imperfect, just important. And when you can find that person, you guys have just limitless and beautiful matches all the time. And her and I did. It was just one of those things. And we were in an era I call the lost era because you had the golden era and you had, your Sherry Martells and your Wendy Richters and your um yeah, and even the women managers, right? And
Right.
so Miss Elizabeth, and then all of a sudden there was a vacant title, and then there was my era. It was just a small time, and it was a lost era, and then the women were dumped again, and then the title lay dormant, and then all of a sudden there was the Attitude Era and Divas Era, and this is where we're at today.
Yeah, but even when you look back at those matches now, especially SummerSlam with
They're
Bull
equivalent
Nakano.
to today.
Yeah, and it seems to me like I was trying to think back of the different times I saw certain things in wrestling for the first time, and it just seems like when you're seeing something like that for the first time, it captures your imagination. The first time I saw Bull Nakano wrestle was probably she had a run of matches in 1986 in the WWF
Hmm.
with Dump Matsumoto against the Crush Gals, I believe, which
Hmm.
Chigusa Nagayo and Linus Asuka was the two.
Yeah,
But
wrestled both of them as well.
what was that like?
Well, when I first went to Japan, I my whole angle was with Chigusa Nagoya. And so, I mean, thank God for her. Thank God for her just to welcome me and to put me in this program with her. And she was so far in advance that it was just she made my career. She's the one that elevated it and got me started. So everything is for, I mean, we don't talk enough about Chigusa. She's the one that basically started for Madusa. And it was amazing. And then I had my first ever hour-long match with Lioness Asuka. And that is not even spoke about. I don't even see women doing hour-long matches. And so it was, oh my gosh, there's so much. And then I had street fights, I had boxing matches. And it's incredible how my career took off in Japan and how I knew I needed to come back to the States and reinvent Medusa. Because, like, every 2 years or so, it's like the fans have this transition and there's new ones coming in and old ones going out and new ones. But, the base always stays there. So I knew I had to get back to the States.
I think it's going to be fun coming off this book if people are starting to seek out some of the old matches from All Japan and some of the 'cause I
Oof.
was thinking three things I was thinking about things I saw for the first time was first that match with the Crush Gals against Bull and Dump in '86, and I was a child when that was happening.
Right,
Uh,
right.
the Glamour Girls and the Jumping Bomb Angels. I was thinking about that one, and then the Survivor
They don't
Series
get
match.
enough credit and they're not in the Hall of Fame.
Which ones, the Glamour Girls or the Jumping Bomb Angels,
I
or
mean, all
both?
four,
Yeah.
maybe? I mean, don't you think they deserve it?
I think at least the WWE Hall of Fame is an interesting argument only because of it's kind of all over the place in terms of what people are in. So everyone making arguments, like you could make a counter argument. Oh, well, that person's in, so everybody can just get in. But I love it for what it recognizes. Your speech specifically, I really really enjoyed of
Wow,
just
thank you.
how honest you were
Thank
and
you.
how straightforward you were. Like somebody said to me when I
That's what I am.
somebody said when I set up this interview, a friend of mine said to me, "Well, you're going to get honesty on that episode." And I said, "I know I am," but Yeah,
Wait
that
till you read the book.
yeah, I am really looking forward to it. I wish I had a little more time at the end of last week to
No
really get about it.
worries.
But those matches and like Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask, like you got to think
Yeah.
the first time an American audience saw those guys in
And
the ring.
Muta. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Wasn't Muta oh my gosh.
I
That's so
remember the first time I
incredible.
saw him too. But it's like Dynamite and Tiger Mask or some of these other matches. It's almost like if you were a U.S. fan at that time, it's like a space alien has landed. It's something you've never seen before. What what's it like when you're doing one of those matches to kind of you're introducing something so different to an audience that doesn't
Well,
kind of know
I,
what to
I
do
I
with it?
would be remiss if I didn't say I was scared to death. I mean, I was scared to death. And I didn't know what I was going to get. And I was so green. Those women handed my butt to me for like a year or so into the mix while I was over there, waking up with black and blue eyes. And finally, one day I woke up and I was like, why am I taking this? And then I just started fighting back. You know what I mean? And then I earned their respect. And so then it was a little bit more smooth sailing from there on in.
Yeah.
But just to see those matches would scare the crap out of anybody. Yeah.
But just even like, a match like you and Bull Nakano on SummerSlam, you look at the rest of that card, there's nothing like it on the card. So what
Well, yeah. And you know what? Scott Hall, he would always come up to me and be like, I remember he came up to me one time and he's like, Deuce, do you think you can tone it down just a bit? Because the boys in the back, they're having a struggle, to follow. And I'm like, what? No. You guys stop wearing red hot and baby oil and greasing up the ropes. Damn it. Gosh. Yeah.
that's got to be fun to hear though when you do something like that, knowing
Yeah.
it's putting them
I didn't
on
know
the
if he was
spot.
ribbing me or what, but coming from Scott, it was the truth. So
Right. Any thoughts on? I know you had a little bit of time over in Stardom for a bit,
yes.
and Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, kind of having a current run in New Japan and Stardom. Any thoughts on her getting involved over there?
Well, first of all, Stardom is probably one of the best women's, organizations there in Japan. And I say that with so much respect because Rasi Ogawa-san, he's the one that owned it, right? And he's the one that worked in the office for All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling when I was over there for those 3 years. So Rasi, he graduated, did whatever, grew, he loved the business, and then he started Stardom. Stardom is it reminds me of All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling. It is legit hard hitting, just great girls, great moves, great training, respect. And then he sold it to, I think who did he sell it to? New Japan.
Bushi Road, which is the parent
Yeah,
company of New Japan.
yeah. So I thought, wow, but he still does so much hands-on with everything with Stardom. So that's good. At least it's still in good hands. I'd like to see more of Stardom. But I see it's kind of lost a little bit now because I used to see it on the internet all the time. And then, now you don't get to see it that much. As far as Mercedes, I think Mercedes has actually, during a time when she was still championship, I believe tag team championship, she just, whatever she was feeling, she felt like whatever. And she handed the titles in and she walked out because she wanted to fulfill something or her dream, right? Something she always wanted to do. So, I mean, God bless her on that, somebody following what they want to do. And, hopefully she'll go back to WWE someday if she wants to. And right now she's just fulfilling it. So let's hope and continue that everything is great over there with her in Stardom. And, maybe she's, showing or paving the way that, women can do what they want to do. I may have waited until my contract expired and then did it.
Right.
But, everyone has their own reasons and choice. And I don't know what that was. So I can't say on hers.
And it's good too if her star is able to bring a little bit more attention to Stardom. Stardom's already growing a lot as it is, and with a pretty young audience. And if her being there gets more eyeballs on their product and gets it in the US a little bit. And, again, it's going to be something very different, I think, than what people are used to watching every week in American pro wrestling. So it's gonna be pretty interesting to see where that
Yeah.
is able to go, because
Well, hopefully it continues,
yeah,
and everything delivers like it's supposed to. Because there's nothing more than the fans hate is a huge pop and then it dies. You know what I mean? So let's hope that they do it right and the momentum keeps going, and for Mercedes as well, because I want nothing but success for, people in our industry. And, she's got the right mindset. She's got the right people behind her. So on her end, she's just got to follow through and keep the work up. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I feel that she can do that. She's just got to apply herself.
So you're
And
you're
by the
go ahead.
way, I am still the commissioner of Stardom. So who knows? I might show up.
I'm not going to ever be surprised when you show up anywhere, whether it's an NWA or in a poker game on Monday Night Raw.
Oh
Or
my gosh, I don't even know how to play poker. Thank God that was scripted.
So you're someone who's seen or been a part of so many different promotions and worked with so many promoters over the course of your career. You kind of mentioned, sort of what your era, at least in the WWF, was sort of back then. You've worked for Vern, you've worked for Vince, you've worked for Bischoff. I think you've worked with Watts, maybe even a little bit with the WWF.
Hmm.
Any perspective on how those guys managed things? Who was there anybody who was like the closest to getting women's wrestling right out of that crew, and maybe somebody who could have tried a little bit harder and would have maybe maneuvered things in a different direction?
Well, I feel that Vince's approach with WWE when they approached me wanting to start, a women's roster and a women's league and revive the women's title, I truly believe him. I did. I believed in him, and he started off just great. And then, on his defense, even though he let me go, I mean, he had a lot of problems going on. So what did they do? They just got rid of the women's division because they needed to do whatever, which I thought was just crazy, just crazy. And I rebelled. Because, it just, again, just get rid of the women. You know what I mean? So there I
Right.
am. I'm going to get loud. I'm going to stomp my feet. So I truly believed in that. And I feel that every organization could have done better with women. I think they were portrayed just, continually, during that era where it was all TNA.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what I was about, even though I fell into some of that because I was under contract. But then I just said, enough. This is not what I'm about. And I chose to retire and leave because I just didn't like the direction where the women were being, how they were being held. And no, it's all in my book.
Yep. It's been fun to see, it's been fun to see you receive accolades for your career, but it's also been nice for me to see. One of my all-time favorite women's wrestlers is Molly Holly, and it's
Mm,
been really nice to see her get her due the last few years. I know you guys had the run with Randy Savage as Team Madness. What
mm.
what was she like to when she was starting out, and what do you think about what she did for women's wrestling in her era that sort of followed?
She was very quiet. Another one from Minnesota. Again, it had to be in the water. So much great talent came from Minnesota. And she was very quiet, and she knew what she had to do. She understood the assignment to become the wrestler that she was. She was good at what she did, and she was in that era where all of that was going on about women, and she was like one of the true hardcore, last hitting, good old school wrestling girls. And I always said, gosh, she was the last one that had that breed in her, right? And then, they just didn't do much with her, and I was very disappointed.
Yeah, I was always, and I was at the women's Royal Rumble, the first one that they did in
Oh,
Philadelphia. And when she came out, I was like, "You got to be kidding me! This is great!" Like Molly Holly's in this. Are you kidding me? But
mm-hmm,
that's just. And then also, I was at the Evolution at the Nassau Coliseum when you were in that too. So
mm-hmm.
in the Battle Royal. Um, so you remained around the modern wrestling scene through. I think you're doing a little bit of producing with NWA, and also you've been.
I work with NWA. Yes, I do produce with them on all of their shows. And I do show up intermittently with WWE and, like on NXT or WWE or Raw or whatever. But it's not a lot. It's just a handful. And um, would I like to be more active? Absolutely. Absolutely. Would I like a retirement match? Sure. But I don't want to be 70 years old flopping around the mat just, because Moolah or May, they did. That's just no. I want it decent. And if it doesn't happen here in the next year or two, I mean, I'm okay with that because I'm comfortable with myself and I'm happy what I've done and where I'm at and the change and what I've done for the wrestling community.
What do you feel like you would bring in sort of a coaching role or a mentorship role or something like that at this point? Even I had on this list to kind of ask you about some of the people who might have been that for you, over the course of your career. But what do you kind of see for yourself in that kind of a role?
Well, I mean, working with NWA, being a producer, I mean, if it wasn't for Pat Kenny just saying, calling me up, hey Deuce, you're missing your calling, man. You need to be here. And I'm like, what? So, and then I dove right into it. And sure enough, I mean, yeah, I really enjoy helping them, working with the kids, giving them a different perspective. Because every agent, every producer has their own views of their own ways of doing things. So, that's really, I think that's cool because they can take a little bit from each one. And I just, I give seminars. It's called Kick, Wrestle, and Roll. And I educate the kids on the other side of wrestling. And so I let them know about what's out there, about trademarking, the legalities, about health and the insurance and, all the twos and, to do's and not to do's. And, and it's an amazing little seminar. And it's helped and educate a lot of people. Ask Thunder Rosa when she went to my first seminar and
Mm.
what she did. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And a lot of them did. They followed in the footsteps. So to me, that helps a lot. I believe in being smart, not, and learning about your business because your brand, you are a brand, you are a business, and you have to run it like one. And no one ever taught us any of that. No one ever taught us on what to do. Who in the heck would think that you would trademark your own name 40 years ago, right? I did. And thank God because Medusa's, yeah, it's just thank gosh.
And even the spelling because of the origin of it too. So
Hmm.
it's unique and it's you. You mentioned Rhea Ripley before. You mentioned Thunder Rosa. Anybody else who stands out to you that you're kind of a fan of in the modern scene right now?
Well, all of them. You
Yeah.
can't just zero one out. I mean, if I'm really digging something that somebody's doing, or I happen to see a move on Twitter or this or that, I'm gonna get on there. Heck
Nice.
yeah, I'll give them accolade. Ooh, heck yeah, way to go, great move. Um, why not? We never had it when our social media were, it was magazines and other people wrote it. So social media today is just so ready available that you're able to connect with that person and let them know how you feel. So why not and keep it good?
Very good. So we're going to move on to something we call the 3 count now. It's going to be 3 quick questions and your answers. So aside from yourself, what wrestler's life who you've met do you think would make a captivating movie?
Besides myself,
Besides you, who else? What wrestler's life do you think would make a captivating movie of somebody you've come across?
Sunny.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I do. She's very colorful figure.
yeah,
Yeah, and there's so many high points with her as well,
yeah.
and so even though there's not so good ones, she did a lot for the business, and she
Cool.
was yeah, absolutely, her story needs to be told.
All right. Next question: who is the funniest person you've come across in pro wrestling?
Well, I mean, I don't know, funny. Mm, funny, I don't know, I guess. I mean, I can't think of any. I don't know. I've never thought about anybody being like. I mean, there's some good people, and I haven't really just met a comedian per se. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a
well,
hard one.
yeah,
I
it's
don't
your
know.
individual taste. So,
Funny? I mean, Kurt Hennig was great to be around. He was a good ribber.
mhm.
And Owen Hart, he was fun. We'd always joke around together. And I mean, and I just think of more personal levels and good friendships. But yeah,
Okay. That works. And then the last question: if you were going to show someone 3 Madusa matches to introduce them to your career, what would you pick, and I guess why?
I'd definitely say Bull Nakano and I at SummerSlam. Yeah, and I would definitely show them my hour-long match with Lioness Asuka. Also show them the street fight or the boxing match between Aja Kong and I.
Very interesting. Now I've got some things that I need to look up of what I haven't seen out of those few. So, Madusa, thank you so much for joining me today on Under the Ring
welcome.
Pro Wrestling Conversations. I've really enjoyed this, and the woman who would be king.
Yes,
Story.
available now on Amazon. It's already out. Like, it's early. Like, it wasn't even supposed to be out till March 28th, but people are getting them. And I mean, I've got friends and family members are like, gosh, I'm already on chapter 5, and oh my gosh, you're blowing my mind, and I've known you for 20 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's so
yeah.
tremendous. That's awesome. So
very good.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and all the best for everything you've got moving forward. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. And I'll be at WrestleCon for WrestleMania. I don't know if you guys will be out there or anything, but I'll be there for WrestleCon Friday and Saturday signing for the book between 9 and 2.
Awesome. Great.
Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
We're good?
I think we're going to keep running because I'm going to do my intro, outro after.
Okay. I know how that goes.
I forgot about that, actually.
No worries, you guys. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks a lot.
All right, honey. Bye.
Bye-bye.